What if I told you that in the heart of Babylon's darkness, an invisible war broke out in the heavens, not for kings or kingdoms, but for one man on his knees, a man whose prayers shook the skies, and whose faith ignited an angelic battle above empires? Welcome to Divine War Stories, where ancient battles between light and darkness come to life, not through myth, but through moments when heaven intervened for the faithful. Subscribe now and join us as we uncover the spiritual conflicts hidden behind earthly stories. In the heart of the most powerful empire on earth, a man knelt alone in the silence of his room while the golden towers of Babylon cast long shadows across the land. Daniel, once a captive boy from Jerusalem, now held influence in the court of kings, yet his loyalty was never to Babylon's throne but to a kingdom far beyond human sight, a kingdom not made by hands nor ruled by mortal decrees. And it was in this hidden allegiance that Daniel found himself not just a prophet, not just an exile, but a target of something far greater than political envy, because when Daniel fasted, when he wept, when he lifted prayers soaked in tears and desperation, something shifted beyond the stars, something ancient, something fierce, and something divine. 21 days passed in agonizing silence as Daniel waited for an answer from heaven, not knowing that the silence wasn't absence but warfare, not delay but resistance, for while Daniel remained on earth, far above him a cosmic conflict raged, one that pitted angel against prince, Michael against a dark dominion, and the heavens themselves groaned under the weight of Babylon's spiritual powers, for the prince of Persia, not a man but a territorial spirit, resisted the messenger of God sent to bring revelation, holding back light with force, shadowing truth with defiance, until the great archangel Michael came to fight, to break the barrier, to defend the message that had Daniel's name written on it by the hand of heaven. This wasn't a myth passed down by priests or a metaphor for struggle, but a documented event in sacred scripture. When the angel finally reached Daniel, breathless, he confessed he had been detained, not by armies or walls, but by unseen forces that stood between heaven's will and earth's cry, and this moment exposed what most ignore, that prayer isn't passive, fasting isn't just abstinence, and devotion isn't weak. For when a faithful heart speaks, the skies respond, and sometimes the answer comes soaked in battle, sometimes angels bleed light, and sometimes your silence on earth is a war in the heavens you don't even see. Daniel wasn't asking for gold or power or vengeance, he was asking for understanding, clarity, insight into visions that disturbed his soul, and yet this simple request triggered the attention of celestial beings. Because when a man desires truth more than comfort, heaven listens. When someone aches for purpose more than pleasure, God moves, and in this movement, the clash begins, for darkness does not fear religion, it fears revelation. It doesn't tremble at noise, but it flees from intimacy with God, and Daniel had something deeper than ritual, deeper than law. He had relationship, and in that relationship, he had access to divine intelligence. Imagine being so in tune with the Spirit that when you pray, heaven dispatches messengers and hell tries to intercept them. Imagine being so committed to truth that your hunger causes tremors in spiritual realms. This was Daniel, not a warrior with weapons but a warrior with wisdom, not a soldier of might but a servant of light, and Babylon, for all its idols and fire-breathing kings, could not corrupt him, could not silence him, could not own him, because Daniel belonged to something higher. And that loyalty made him dangerous in the eyes of darkness, a threat that had to be neutralized not by man but by fallen powers. The message Daniel waited for was not trivial, it was prophetic insight, a window into what would come, not just for Israel but for the ages, and Satan, the great adversary, knew that if this knowledge reached the earth, it would unlock courage, strategy, and preparation in God's people. So he stirred up resistance, not just on thrones, but in the air, and the Prince of Persia, a demonic principality, fought not against humans but against angels, intercepting what God had authorized. Yet heaven does not leave its messengers unaided, and so the commander of the heavenly armies, Michael, was sent, because Daniel's prayer was not a whisper, it was a war cry. Every delay has a story, and some delays are not denials, they're battles. Some silences are not God's absence, they're signs of angelic resistance being broken. Daniel didn't stop praying because the answer didn't come. He pressed in, he kept mourning, he kept seeking, and that perseverance opened a gateway, a portal through which revelation could pass once victory was secured. And when the angel arrived, he didn't come with casual greetings, but with urgency, clarity, and the weight of warfare still echoing in his wings, letting Daniel know. You were heard from the first day, but the battle for your answer was fierce. This moment in Babylon teaches us a truth many forget. The unseen is more real than what we touch, and often, our breakthroughs are being fought for in places we can't reach, by warriors we may never see, but who are assigned to us by a God who never abandons. So don't stop praying, even when nothing changes. Don't stop seeking, even when the silence is loud, because like Daniel, your faith might be stirring a conflict in the second heaven, and the moment you give up might be the moment. Reinforcements are being sent. The moment Michael is drawing his sword to make a way for what has your name on it. Daniel's story isn't about ancient prophecy alone, it's about the power of one faithful person to move heaven, the impact of devotion that refuses to compromise in a world that demands it. He faced lions, betrayal, exile, and still remained unmoved, because his eyes weren't fixed on the gold of Babylon, but on the glory of God, and that kind of loyalty terrifies the darkness, because it can't be bought, can't be broken, and can't be silenced. It echoes in eternity and causes angels to be dispatched in defense of that heart, and even today, your prayers have that same potential, to summon heaven and shake hell. When heaven fought for Daniel, it wasn't just about him, it was about us, about the pattern, the blueprint, the revelation that the spiritual realm isn't passive, and that we are part of something so much bigger than our pain, bigger than our needs. Daniel was a man, yes, but he was also a catalyst, a doorway through which divine wisdom poured, and that wisdom is still reaching us today, not because he had status or strength, but because he had surrender. He chose faithfulness when no one was watching, and that private devotion became public warfare in the spiritual realm, a war God was willing to fight for him. And so the curtain was pulled back, not just for Daniel, but for all of us watching across time, to understand that divine delays are sometimes divine wars, that waiting is not weakness but participation in a holy siege beyond human view. Every day that Daniel fasted, he was unknowingly fueling the strength of the angel sent on his behalf. Every tear was a flame in the dark, every whispered prayer a sword in the hand of the host of heaven. And this changes everything, because it means we are not helpless, not forgotten, not waiting in vain. It means our struggle is strategic, our discipline divine, and our God, always fighting for what he promises. This spiritual reality, hidden behind the walls of Babylon, still exists in the cities we live in today. The names have changed, the temples replaced by screens, but the powers still lurk, territorial spirits still resist the advance of light, and faithful ones are still caught in the middle, like Daniel, praying behind locked doors, misunderstood by the crowd, and yet seen by heaven with piercing clarity. Because God does not miss a single moment of obedience, and while the world celebrates noise, God honors silence. He honors the one who seeks him in secret, the one who says yes when no one is looking, and it is for those that angels are sent to war. In this battle, Daniel was not just a bystander but a catalyst, and the angel told him something profound. From the first day you humbled yourself to gain understanding, your words were heard. This means that humility is a spiritual detonator, that the moment pride dies, power flows, and heaven listens. And this is why the enemy resists humility so violently, why distraction, ego, busyness, and compromise are deployed like smoke to blind us. But Daniel cleared the fog with hunger, with prayer, and with unwavering focus, and in doing so, he touched the heavens and caused a response so powerful it demanded archangel intervention. The story ends not with fireworks but with revelation. Pages of prophecy, timelines of empires, visions of beasts and kings, of tribulation and hope, all downloaded into Daniel's spirit, and this is the reward of warfare. Not comfort, but clarity, not escape, but purpose, the kind of purpose that shapes generations, that inspires courage in the face of oppression, and even in our own lives. The greatest answers often come after the fiercest resistance, not because God hesitates, but because darkness fears what you will become if you receive what God has for you, and so it fights, it delays, but it cannot stop what God has ordained. So what does this mean for us today, for the ones who kneel behind doors, unsure if God is listening? It means you're not alone in that room. It means your prayers are not just words but weapons. It means that silence isn't defeat. It's often the sound of angels fighting for your breakthrough. And like Daniel, we are invited not to withdraw but to press in, to wait, to believe that the invisible is real, that heaven has not gone quiet, it has gone to war, and if we remain steadfast, if we choose faith over frustration, we may find that what comes after the delay is greater than what we ever imagined. Daniel's legacy isn't just one of visions, but of endurance, the kind of spiritual endurance that doesn't fade in exile, doesn't weaken in persecution, and doesn't bend under pressure. He lived through empires, through lions, through betrayals, and through decades of cultural pressure, yet his faith remained unshaken, because it was never rooted in circumstance but in the unchanging nature of God, and that kind of faith is rare, but powerful. It disrupts systems, it provokes the heavens, and it invites us into a life where our smallest decisions echo in eternity and call forth divine intervention. This is not just history, it's prophecy lived, it's spiritual mechanics revealed, showing us that the battlefield is not always what we see, sometimes it's what we don't see that matters most. Daniel shows us how to fight with our knees, how to resist with our hearts, and how to endure with hope, and his life tells every listener this truth. You don't need a platform to make an impact in the spiritual realm, you don't need a crowd to be known in heaven. You need purity, devotion, and an unwillingness to bow to the golden statues of your day, and when you live like that, even the angels take notice. What began as one man praying for clarity turned into a revelation that would span generations, because God doesn't just answer, he multiplies. Daniel's breakthrough wasn't just for him, it became scripture, it became guidance, it became the key that unlocked timelines for prophets, preachers, and seekers throughout the ages, and this is how God works. Your personal battle becomes someone else's deliverance, your private victory becomes public inspiration, and your obedience, when wrapped in surrender, becomes a seed that bears fruit long after your time has passed. So the next time you feel forgotten, the next time your prayers go unanswered, remember Babylon, remember the waiting, remember the war, and remember that Daniel had no idea what was happening above him, and yet he remained faithful, and that faithfulness brought heaven down, pierced the darkness, and changed history. Don't let delay deceive you. God is not ignoring you, he's fighting for you, and what he is preparing is worth the wait, worth the pain, and worth every tear, because just like Daniel, your story might just become the next divine war story. If this story moved you, share it with someone whose prayers have grown quiet. Remind them that silence is not abandonment but strategy, and that the God who fought for Daniel still fights for those who seek him with all their heart. Subscribe to Divine War Stories for more epic encounters between heaven and earth, and remember, your faith is more powerful than you think, and your prayers might be stirring angels into action even now.